Good night. Okay, so after some sleep, there are two issues that I want to speak about, and these are quite new issues because I haven't spoken about it almost at all during the last 4 years. Though I've written about it in very vaguely term, like kind of like a prophecy of an oracle that is very metaphorical about 3 years ago, and also spoken about it maybe 2 years ago, very shortly. And the reason why I didn't elaborate on that is because I just didn't have the information. And although it wasn't very, very important, because one is a historical issue from far history, and the second is kind of mechanical or systematic issue which does not reflect or does not say a lot about the morality of the actors, and specifically, it's deeply related to the state of Israel and to the nature of Israel, but it does not define the evil of Israel. Like, this is an evil state and an evil people, and they should be destroyed. And this or that mechanical aspect of their evilness was not, to my understanding, particularly important. But these are interesting subjects, so I will mention these two subjects now. First, the historical or far historical. There's a question. I mean, it's kind of obvious question, and like I wonder what kind of answers were given by the various intelligence agencies of the world to this question, because this question must be asked. And the question is the following: you reach a new planet, and you see that the inhabitants of the planets are certainly a product of intelligent design. Now, it might be progressive intelligent design in a process that could, in a way, be said to be similar to natural evolution, but still, I mean, I would say maybe as opposed to Homo sapienses, which were also, by the way, created by a process that includes both intelligent design and evolution. But this is less evident and requires like more thought to understand it. But in the case of the creatures that you find in this new planet, it's evident that an intelligent designer was involved in the process. So two questions should be immediately asked. First, where is that intelligent designer? And second, how is that these creatures that potentially has tremendous powers, they're like the potential both from the physical and the cognitive point of view are so higher than those of humans as you know it, but yet they live in a society that is, from logistic perspective and material perspective, far inferior to the average societies in Earth at the time when you discover these people. So how is it possible? The second question is a mechanical question regarding the nature not of the gates themselves, but as the passing of the gates. Like, who can pass the gate and in what circumstances? Because as I said many times, it's not always possible to cross the gates. There is an issue, there is some kind of mechanism here that should be understood. So, what is this mechanism and how it affects them, like the history of the usage of the gates? So, regarding the first question, So very early in this journey, maybe 3 or 3.5 years ago, I've written a blog post which I suggested an answer, and the answer was that, I mean, it's not really an original answer, but it's the first one that comes to mind, that there was a catastrophe on this planet, and actually that they had a much higher standard of living and much higher technology, more advanced technology and social structures, but there was a catastrophe, and the catastrophe was caused by their own hands. They created the catastrophe. And I mean, it's very vague, but I mean, one such theory that I presented, which it doesn't say much because it's really it's very vague, but I will mention it again, that the main problem, I mean, of course there were all I mean, after, conflict starts and getting more and more like widespread and global, sometimes it's difficult to understand the root causes, especially if you are inclined to positivistic and mechanistic thought. But this is, of course, is true to humans even more so. But if you want to search for the root cause, one theory that I propose is that it's something related to family structures and to the way that they treated their children. This is very vague, I know. Just I don't have any more information. And that one of the worst consequences of this calamity was the loss of the moon. One of the most difficult astronomical or cosmological events to actually discover by scientists is the loss of a planet or a loss of a moon. Sometimes you can hypothesize that a moon was lost because it collided with its planet or with another body. Because if the moon was big enough, it might show. I mean, if it was small enough, it might be categorized as an asteroid, and you can can identify it as an asteroid impact. But if it was big enough, this would have caused a complete resurfacing of, more than even deeper than resurfacing, like recomposition of the entirety of the matter. And actually, some say that this is the history of the Earth. That, not exactly collision of Earth with the moon, but collision of Earth with a huge body that is probably, I don't know, categorized as a dwarf planet, or, the categories even change to this day, so let's not be too hung up on our categories, because humans change the categories of these kind of bodies. So anyway, a small but big, something that, a small planet or a big moon inside the solar system that collided with Earth, and the collision completely changed the Earth, like to a new planet with a smaller body that is now the moon. This is due to the fact that the moon is very big relative to Earth in relation to other moons, and the fact that they are probably made of the same material. But if the moon is just lost, and there is a question of what does it even mean? How can it be just lost? But let's say that it's possible, and it is possible. And moreover, the machines that can do such a things are right here, right now. Like, there is more than one and more than 10 machines that can do things just like that, and they are right here, like in the vicinity of the Earth. So let's say that it's possible to do it, and it's totally possible. It will be after some time, it will be very difficult for scientists to actually understand that it happened, because, I mean, you do not take into generally you do not take into calculations things that do not exist anymore. I mean, sometimes you do. Some astronomers famously try to take into calculation things that they do not see, but might be there. Like, I mean, this is famous case for calculation for gravitational. I mean, gravitational fields and orbits. But I mean, it's only true when the objects are already there, just you don't see the objects. But if it's not there, I mean, it's very difficult to say, okay, it was there in the past. And although there is a huge mathematics involved that maybe humans don't even have at that point. And it's more than possible that the loss of the moon also created a loss of spin. Because there is some kind of bicycle mechanism between the spin of the moon around the planet and the spin of the planet itself around its axis. Like a gravitational bicycle. And maybe the Venusian civilization, even though it was advanced in a way that they have advanced biology and long lifespan, they couldn't adjust their culture to very long nights. And maybe this is the cause of their inferior, from logistics and technology point of view, the inferior position to, I mean, relative to Earth. And regarding the intelligent designers, of course, he was always there. Both because he's God, so he's always there, and also because he has other sons, other species that some of them are highly technological, much more than even the Venusians at their peak. Certainly, one of these species is the species that I call the cherubs. And well, what did they do? Not much, because it's not but they are not the babysitters of the planet. Again, I do not believe in the Prime Directive, and I'm certain that the cherubs do not believe in the Prime Directive, like the Star Trek Prime Directive. But we do understand the good meanings and the logic behind the Prime Directives, and we agree with that. Of course, we understand that, and it's just that, I mean, that the way that it postulates it's wrong, because of reasons that I've already outlined in this channel, and maybe I will elaborate it more in the future if you want. But so, okay, of course there is kind of like it's a problem. I mean, it's a problem. It requires very advanced species to deal with such problem. Not every species that can actually understand or comprehend the problem. It's far from saying that they can actually deal with the problem. So I mean, it's a very difficult problem, and the solution is very difficult, and it cannot be summarized in a sentence. Like, so what do? You do something, and it might turn out good or bad, but you do something. Which means, in practical sense, that you intervene with the development of other inferior species, but you do not babysit them. And yes, you let them do mistakes, and yes, you let them kill each other, and yes, you let them create create genocides on each other. But probably you will not let them like press the button of a weapon that will destroy all of them together. Probably, I mean, when such a button is about to be pressed, yes, a cherub will appear and will avoid this. But not much more than that. And yes, it's a you can I don't think that anyone, even a creature far smarter than I am, I don't think that they have kind of like a mathematical solution to the problem. Of how, I mean, you believe in like in the in the in the right, like it's the right to be to develop their own way, to develop their own culture, and to develop their own values. You cannot impose your own values and culture on them, but at the same time, you don't want them to destroy themselves completely and to destroy other like the entire planet, which is a major concern, and it was a major concern even before the atomic weapons. Don't be mistaken. Humanity was like very dangerous species long before the invention, long before Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer wasn't Oppenheimer and these people were not the first group of people that supposedly elevated humanity to a place that they now threat to themselves and to the other species around them. This was the case long ago. So the cherubs were there and they're still there, and they are sad about the situation, but they do not babysit other species. We do understand the moral principle and then the reasons and the logic behind the Star Trek Prime Directive, even though we do not accept it, but we understand it. Now, regarding the other questions of, so who, I mean, right from the beginning, I understood there is a issue of like certain people can pass the gates and certain people cannot, and I didn't understand who can and who cannot. I understood that they think that I can do it, and that they want me to be like their agent, and I understood that I'm Master Caesar resistant, and I've never passed a gate in my life, at least not knowingly. As I said, maybe there is one time that I did it without my knowledge, in the case of the North Command. But I only came to this conclusion very, very recently, like about a month ago. I didn't even thought about it until then. And if it was actually this case, it was like a second or a minute, like outside of Earth, without my knowledge. And the reason why I didn't speak about it too much is because I didn't have new information. Like, I cannot speak about things if I have no new information at all. But one theory that I thought about recently, I don't know if it's true, but is that maybe I missed in one aspect of this question, that, and that's why I couldn't understand the answer. And maybe you can only pass the gate once. And maybe it's true to everyone. Maybe everyone can pass the gate once. I thought about it recently because I mentioned my grandmother, Batya, that she passed the gate, of course, because she's a Titan. And I said that, I mean, not specifically regarding her, but I said, I mean, that if in the case that my grandfather, Yaakov, was murdered, and it was very highly possibility after his actions in the 50s, I said that, I mean, she wouldn't return to Venus, but for certain she would marry like another person here on Earth. And I said that, I mean, this never happens, and probably due to the fact that they are getting used to, supply of food and many things that, I mean, that they have in Earth. But this is true for young Titans. But she was not young when she passed the gates, and I've said it. So for older Titans, I'm not sure that such, I mean, there's a question here because for older Titans, and she's not the first and only older Titans that passed the gate. Sometimes it happens with older ones as well, to a much lesser extent, but sometimes it happens as well. So for the older ones, there's the question of why not returning. I mean, they already got used to life in Venus, and maybe they even have like relatives and kind of like social network. So there is still a question of not why it's out of the question to get to return. And I only thought about it in the last couple of days. So this is highly theoretical, but I think it's important enough to share it with you, even though it's very theoretical, like hypothetical, and very new, like from my perspective. I only thought about it during the last couple of days, but maybe what I missed throughout, like when I thought about passing the gate all of years, is the fact that you can only pass it once. So when you pass it, then you cannot get back. Now you can ask, okay, maybe this is for health reasons, because, I mean, you don't want to cross-contaminate the planets. But cross-contamination is possible even when you cross it once. Of course, like, back and forth passages between the gates dramatically increases the possibility of biological cross-contamination. But even one passage is enough for this risk to, I mean, to be yes. I mean, the more you do it, I mean, it greatly, I mean, increases the possibility of cross-contamination. But even the first time, it's still, the possibility is still there. Okay, so you can ask, you can say maybe only non-biological creatures like myself can do it. That was one of the first very, 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 very early conjectures that I had. But it doesn't make sense at all. That's why, I mean, I abandoned this thought very, very quickly, because like maybe only cherubs can do it. But this doesn't make sense, because you don't know about cherubs. You don't even know what a cherub is. And the more advanced in my journey, the more I understood that you don't know what cherubs are, and you deny the fact that they exist. Even when I show you positive evidence, like microscopic research that is done in the most rigorous way that I can, that I would say perhaps, I mean, of course, it is not qualified as a rigorous research by standards of our own universities today, but most of the advancement, the most important in science, the advancements in science, that in the medical science that was carried out during the 19th century and the beginning of 20th century, was done by people just like myself that have just my own condition, not better than that. And this was the most important contribution to science ever. So yeah, even with these conditions, you can do a lot of research. It will not even be close to pass like the level of quality that is needed for universities today, but most of science, like during history, was done just, recent history, I speak like 19th century and beginning of 20th century, also before that, even the 18th century, after Anthony van Leeuwenhoek, most of the science was done just like that, by people that weren't that different from me and didn't work in a much better conditions. So I've shown you that I'm not a Titan and not a Homo sapiens so many times. But even when they have all this proof in front of their eyes, they still, some people to this moment, like up until now, they still deny the fact that the cherubs even exist. And as you said, I am almost 100% certain that the Venera probes have seen things on Venus that frightened them completely, like that the USSR was shocked by what they've seen. And they weren't shocked by the fact that it is an inhabited planet because they already knew it. And even if they didn't know it, what could they have seen that could shock them? What, towns? So what? So maybe there are towns on Venus. Is that shocking? No. Like, I wouldn't be shocked to know that there are towns on Venus. Why should they be shocked by the existence of towns on Venus? So that's not what shocked them. But there was something that they've seen that shocked them and prompted them to send more and more probes to get more and more photography from this planet. Of course, all of which is classified until this day. So what can be more shocking? I mean, what they wanted to map the planet? This was actually done later. Actually, I don't remember the project name. Maybe Galileo. It was done actually later. I think in the late 80s or early 90s. Or Magellan probe, Magellan satellite. The Soviets still didn't have the capability for full-scale orthophotic, it's called orthophotic view, which kind of like a map that, I mean, it's kind of like photographs that are aligned to, I mean, to the normal, like, I mean, orientation for in order to create something like a map based on, it's like Google Photos. So they didn't have this technology, but not much later, I mean, I think the Europeans, or maybe the Americans, they did it. But it was important enough for them to get as much as possible in info. So what for? Because they were shocked by what the first probes have shown them. And it was not the fact that the place is inhabited, because they knew it. And even if they didn't, the first one could actually is enough to say it, to show it. And I mean, if there are towns. If there are no towns, even that could have not been, like, I mean, if there are no towns, I mean, what could be shocking here? The only answer that I have is that the early probes proved something that, yes, was shocking from the Soviets' perspective, and prompted them to enhance this project up until the 80s. It was a very expensive project, and presumably without almost any benefit from social point of view, because all of almost all of the probes, according to the KGB, were either destroyed on launch or destroyed on impact, or there was severe malfunction. So we have almost no photographs from Venus. Almost no fake photographs from Venus. We have very few. Like, you can count them on one hand, the number of fake photographs from from the surface of Venus. So why did they keep, spending money on this? And presumably from the 50s, they presumably knew that this is a hell planet that could not sustain life, and there is anything interesting on it, presumably. But yet they keep sending so much, not from 50s, sorry, from the beginning of the 60s. But yet, for 20 years, they kept spending money instead of presumably spending it on the moon, which was presumably a much more important objective, because, the Americans were, focused on the moon. So why not beat the Americans in their own game, which would have given them much more, prestige in the world, in the Cold War. Or if they don't like the moon for some reason, but they did like the moon, they sent the Lunar project, which was actually pretty successful, even though it's overshadowed by the Apollo program. But the Lunar program was actually very successful. It's just that, there was the more successful Apollo project, but with disregard to the Apollo project, the Lunar project was very successful. But in any case, they also had the parallel Venera project. So why was it important at all? I am certain that they knew, but I'm 100% certain that they knew about like the fact that the place is inhabited before the Venera project. But even if, I mean, the slim possibility that the Venera project actually proved that the place is inhabited, so why continuing? What do you want to achieve, like, with that? They didn't advocate the capability to send the human to Venus. Not that they needed it because they have a gate, but you could say maybe, okay, they thought, so maybe it's inhabited, so we want to send the person, but we don't want to admit that we have a gate. So there is kind of like, so they thought maybe, I mean, that to create like a cover-up project of like an astronaut that land on Venus. I mean, but so the people will not know about the gates, but they will have the knowledge of Venus. But this doesn't make sense for so many reasons. First of all, they didn't want people to know about Venus, and they still don't. And this is the agenda of all the people of the strongest people of Earth, and it's still the agenda. And the second, it's more important, is that during the 60s, they weren't even close to this technology, and they are not close to this technology now. And even the Americans that are far superior to them from the space perspective, they are still, I mean, it's still a pipe dream, like, I mean, Elon Musk pipe dream to send like humans to there. Like to Mars, which is, let's say, equivalent. Even though it's not equivalent, it's much more difficult in Venus because the public will, will expect the astronauts to come back. So how are they going to come back from Venus? The gravity in Venus is 3 times, about, I mean, 2.5, something like that, times that of Venus, of Mars. And I don't know, 10 times that of, or 7 times that of the moon. It's going to be much more difficult to get a person back from Venus to Earth. How are they going to do it? So, no, that wasn't the real motivation behind the Venera project. The real motivation was the things that they discovered by the first Venera probes. So what they did what was the discovery? What they discovered is that two things. First of all, something that I written about 4 years ago or 3 years ago, one of my first hypotheses regarding Venus. It's kind of like an interpretation of several verses from the Bible regarding El Bamotei Haaretz, or Bamot Haaretz, which means, or Bamot, the Bama today in our Hebrew, it's translated as stage, like in a theater, an elevated platform where shows are taking place. In ancient Hebrew, in biblical Hebrew, Bamot, the word not all, it wasn't not uniquely, but the most common meaning was a place to worship idols that was probably like elevated, like an elevated platform of worshiping of idols. Like the physical idol was presented above like an elevated stage above the ground. But it has other similar meanings along those lines in ancient Hebrew. Anyway, my interpretation is that there are actually something like that in Venus, like in elevated platforms. And those elevated platforms were, of course, man-made, like human-made, or made by intelligent, not natural phenomenon. And they understood that the current inhabitant of this planet couldn't have built them, not at the current technology. So it means one of the two. Either that, yes, these people are actually the descendants of a much advanced civilization that was deteriorated by calamity, which is a great warning sign for Earth, because it means that another civilization literally the closest possible to Earth, reached a technology that is far too superior to what people of Earth are now having. But I mean, at some point they had to reset themselves, or like to downgrade themselves considerably, and they are in the downgraded position up till now. And it doesn't matter if it was an intervention by yet another like interplanetary actor, or maybe it's done solely by their own hands, because either this way or the other, any intelligent person, I mean, in Earth, must interpret it as a huge warning sign for Earth. Because if it's another actor, so this actor is presumably still there and can intervene again. And if it's like it's done only by their own hands, so okay, they weren't stupid because they reached the tile. I mean, that's they had like they were intelligent enough to reach very high level of sophistication, but they did not. Presumably, this intelligent and presumably the high moral standard presumably might have accompanied this intelligence did not stop them from completely destroying themselves to a place that they cannot recover. So this is a huge warning sign for people of Earth. So to see such, I mean, alien ruins on Venus, huge ruins on Venus, is a huge warning sign for Earth. And I'm certain that the Soviets understood it very well, and this shocked them. But I will go even further and say that it's not the only thing that they've seen. Because some of these Bamot, these stages were actually not empty. They were actually garages, garage incorporated. So the question, I mean, what can you find on those garages? So this might be a long shot, but I have one idea, and you tell me if I'm correct or not. Even though it's a long shot, but it's not completely unimaginable that they've seen just this. Again, it's a long shot, but of course, like I don't know, billion times larger or something like that. We still didn't answer the question of who can pass the gates. So if only cherubs can pass the gates freely, like back and forth, this would be like answer the question, why are they so interested in me? But they don't acknowledge their existence in Israel, even though the Russians have had, like, I mean, very, very strong, if not a proof, because you can still say that these garages were the product of the Titans themselves, like in their former states, and for some reason they stayed like that for geological, I don't know, time. This is a huge stretch, but maybe, I don't know. It doesn't make much sense, but maybe you can claim that it's true. Even though a much easier solution to the existence of these things is that these are this is the cars. These are the cars of the cherubs, and it's there because they like to come from time to time and they park there. So it's a proof of another civilization, much more sophisticated. But the Israelis, I understand that they never thought about it too much, and they don't like this idea. And up to this day, they still say that I'm like a male Titan, or a wizard Titan, or a shapeshifter Titan, or whatever. But yes, they want me to be their slave and to pass the gate back and forth, of course, even though I've never done that. So there are creatures. I mean, the Dark Knights. The whole saga of the bicycle, I mean, much of it is centered around the group of the Dark Knights, and I am certain that they existed. And I know about it for a long time now. I mean, when I actually recorded the Bicycle Saga, which is during the last 2 or 3 weeks, it was after a long time of investigation, and I mean, it didn't come to me like in a dream, no, like, I mean, I wasn't dictated by like the angel Gabriel, like that I mean, gave me the words to say to you. No, this saga is not the words of an angel that I mean was I mean showed himself to me and so I can say it to you. The saga, the YouTube Bicycle Saga, Bicycle 2-1 Saga is a product of a long investigation, very, very long investigation. And I'm certain that it's true, or at least the important part of the saga. And of course, the existence of the Black Knights is true. So some people can pass back and through without a problem. So what kind of creature are they? So again, okay, so there is a one, I mean, immediate solution, which means the hybrids. And I've spoken about hybrids a lot, I mean, during this, in this YouTube channel, and even before that, in other, like, in Facebook, in Twitter, and it's in my art, that this is, it's something that you see a lot in my art, the issue of the hybrids. That they can go back and through, but the question is, how do you create a hybrid? Like, yes, I understand that the hybrids are addicted to the tea. But what makes an hybrid an hybrid? Because not everybody that eats the tea becomes an hybrid. At least, I mean, because otherwise everyone in Israel will be hybrids. Which perhaps is the case, I don't know. But it makes sense to me now that for some reason you can only pass the gate once. And that's why, like, Titans like my grandfather cannot go back, even if they wanted to. Of course, now she doesn't want to do it, but I'm sure that in any time during her life, it wasn't possible for her to actually get back. And so what I will my hypothesis now is that normally for Titans and for you Homo sapiens, they can only cross the gate once, and then they are stuck in their new place. But for hybrids, they can do it like back and forth however they want. But the only question is, what does it mean, hybrid? I mean, my interpretation of the term hybrid in my own terminology was, until now, was a person, mostly Homo sapiens, that just ate huge amounts of the drug and hybridized himself. And maybe that is true also from, like, I mean, for the mechanics of passing the gates. But maybe there is a different type of hybrids, which is bona fide hybrids, like hybrids. I haven't thought about this too much, even if it's possible or not, because I understand that it's not something normal to do, like that. I mean, at least not in our time, and not only in our time, but certainly since the state of Israel was actually, like, established. But before that, there were 50 years of Titan subjugation that we should never forget. Like it started with Zionism in the 19th century. So maybe for certain in the beginning, heterosexual sex was part of the deal. But could such a sex create offspring? I don't know. What I do know is that today, speaking by such offspring is out of the question, because they don't have sex because of the health-related reasons. But it wasn't always like that. And maybe originally they did create some hybrid, but like real hybrids. But what was their fate? I don't know. Were they born with this disease? I don't know. Were they born like with like kind of like mental illness, or I just don't know. It is possible that such hybrids, like real hybrids, that I'm certain that today just are not getting bored because they don't have sex for all. I mean, since the 40s, they don't have sex. Heterosexual sex is not done since the 1940s between like the Homo sapiens and Venusians. So how could they have children? But there's still the question of what happened during the first decade of Zionism, when I'm certain that it actually was done. And maybe these sex produce hybrids, but what was their nature, I have no idea. But it's one kind of like, I mean, it's not a solution to the question, but it's maybe another like point of direction is that maybe these hybrids, I mean, manage to stay alive, and maybe they can actually cross the gates, I mean, without any restriction at all. So, okay, all of this was highly hypothetical, but I think this is an important enough issues to raise, even in its very, like, I mean, early stage of development